Danny Cole was a mechanic. He had been a mechanic for 20 years, just like his father and his grandfather before him. He worked at a small salvage station called Anchor Point, floating in the dark space at the edge of known territory. His job was simple. Ships came in broken, and he fixed them. He never asked for glory. He never wanted fame. He just liked making things work again. The station was quiet that night. Most of the crew had gone to sleep, and Danny was alone in the repair bay. He was running tests on an old cargo hauler that had been drifting in space for months. The previous owner had abandoned it after the engine failed, and now it belonged to whoever could fix it first. Danny planned to have it running by morning. His console made a sound he had never heard before. It was not a beep or a buzz. It was more like a pulse, slow and heavy, almost like a heartbeat. Danny stopped what he was doing and looked at the screen. A signal was coming in, but it was not on any normal frequency. The computer did not know what to make of it. Danny ran a trace on the signal. It took a few minutes, but he found the source. His eyes went wide when he saw the readings. There was something out there, about 3 hours away at full speed. It was big. Very big. The scanner said it was almost 15 kilometers long. He checked the Galactic registry, looking for any ship that matched the size. Nothing came up? He checked again. Still nothing. Whatever was out there, it was not in any database. It was unknown. Danny called the station commander, a woman named Lisa Marsh. She was tired and annoyed when she answered, but her mood changed quickly when Danny told her what he had found. She came down to the repair bay in her sleep clothes and looked at the readings herself. "That is not possible," she said. "Nothing that big just drifts around without someone knowing about it." "The signal is real," Danny said. "I checked it 3 times. Lisa thought about it for a long moment. The station had no military ships, no escort vessels, nothing that could protect a crew if this turned out to be dangerous. But they also had no money and no resources. If this was a derelict ship, it could be worth a fortune in salvage. "Take a shuttle," she said finally. "Go alone. If it looks dangerous, come back. If it looks safe, report what you find. We cannot afford to send anyone else." Danny nodded. He was used to working alone. He grabbed his toolkit and headed for the shuttle bay. The flight took just under 3 hours. Danny spent most of it watching the scanner, tracking the massive shape ahead of him. As he got closer, he began to see it with his own eyes through the shuttle window. It was the biggest thing he had ever seen. The hull was dark, almost black, but it had strange patterns on it that glowed with a faint blue light. The patterns moved slowly, pulsing like veins under skin. This was not a normal ship. Danny had seen alien vessels before. He had worked on a few of them, but this was different. This looked alive. The signal changed as he approached. It got clearer, stronger, and Danny began to feel something strange. It was like words were forming in his head, but they were not words exactly. They were feelings, emotions, images. He felt pain. He felt fear. He felt a desperate need for help. The ship was not sending a distress call. It was begging. Danny's hands shook on the controls. He had never experienced anything like this before. Part of him wanted to turn around and fly back to the station as fast as possible. This was beyond anything he knew. This was not a job for a simple mechanic, but the pain he felt was real. Something was suffering out there, and it had been suffering for a long time. Danny had fixed a lot of broken things in his life. He had always believed that if something could be repaired, it should be repaired. He could not walk away from this. He guided his shuttle toward the massive hull and looked for a way inside. After a few minutes of searching, he found an airlock. It was old and covered in strange growths, but it looked functional. He brought his shuttle alongside and prepared to dock. As soon as he got close, the airlock opened on its own. Danny had not touched anything. The ship had opened it for him. It knew he was there, and it was letting him in. Danny took a deep breath. He grabbed his toolkit, put on his helmet, and stepped through the airlock into the unknown. The inside of the ship was warm. The walls were not metal. They were soft, almost like flesh, and they moved slightly as Danny walked past. The floor hummed under his boots. Lights glowed from within the walls. Guiding him deeper into the vessel, he walked for several minutes, following the lights until he reached a large open chamber. In the center of the chamber, something pulsed with that same blue light. It was the heart of the ship, Danny realized. The core, the brain, whatever this thing was, it was centered here. The feelings in his head grew stronger: pain, exhaustion, hope. "I am here," Danny said out loud, not knowing if the ship could hear him. "I am here to help." The ship answered with a wave of gratitude so strong that Danny almost fell to his knees. It had been waiting for someone to say those words for a very long time. Danny stood in the center of the great chamber, surrounded by walls that breathed and floors that pulsed with life. He had worked on many strange things in his career, but nothing like this. This ship was not built from metal and wire. It was grown. It was alive. It was a creature vast and ancient, floating through the stars like a whale in an endless ocean. The feelings in his head slowly became clearer. The ship was trying to communicate with him, sending images and emotions directly into his mind. Danny saw flashes of distant galaxies, of stars being born and dying, of journeys that lasted longer than human civilization had existed. This being had traveled the universe for millions of years. It had seen things no human could imagine, but mixed with these wonders was pain. Terrible, constant pain. Something was wrong with the ship, something that had been hurting it for centuries. Danny tried to focus his thoughts, to send a message back. He was not sure if it would work, but he had to try. "Can you understand me?" he thought. "Can you tell me what is wrong?" The answer came as a flood of images. Danny saw creatures, insect-like things with hard shells and many legs. They were small, no bigger than dogs, but there were thousands of them, millions. They crawled through the corridors of the ship, burrowing into its walls, eating its flesh. They had nests everywhere, spreading like a disease. Danny understood. The ship was infested. These creatures were parasites, and they were killing it slowly from the inside. More images followed. Danny saw other ships approaching, vessels from different alien species. Some had come to help, or so the ship had hoped. But they had taken one look at the infestation and either fled in terror or tried to cut pieces from the dying vessel for their own use. No one had offered to cure the sickness. No one had cared. How long? Danny asked in his mind, "How long have you been suffering?" The answer made his heart sink. 400 years. The ship had been in agony for 400 years, drifting alone, begging for help that never came. Danny felt anger rise in his chest. 4 centuries of pain, and not one species in the entire galaxy had bothered to help. They had all seen a dying creature and decided it was not worth the effort. "I am not like them," Danny thought firmly. "I am a mechanic. I fix things. I will fix you." The ship responded with a wave of hope and disbelief. It had given up expecting kindness. It did not understand why this small human would offer what so many others had refused. Danny did not have a complicated reason. He simply believed that when something was broken, you fixed it. When something was in pain, you helped it. That was how he had lived his entire life. He needed to understand the problem better. Through their mental connection, the ship showed him more about the parasites. They were called the Kirith. They were an ancient species that survived by finding living ships and consuming them from within. They attached themselves to the vessel's nervous system and fed on its energy. Once they had a host, they never let go. The Kirith had a queen. She was the largest of them all, and she had buried herself deep inside the ship's brain. As long as she lived, the infestation would continue. But she was protected by thousands of her children, and she had fused herself to the ship's core. Removing her by force would kill the ship itself. Danny nodded slowly. This was not going to be easy. But he had dealt with difficult problems before. He walked through the corridors, letting the ship guide him. The walls showed him where the Kirith nests were located, glowing red in his vision. There were hundreds of nests spread throughout the entire vessel. The smaller ones were in the outer sections, near the skin of the ship. The larger ones were deeper inside, closer to the vital organs. Danny stopped at one of the smaller nests. Through a thin membrane in the wall, he could see the Kareth moving inside. They were ugly creatures with black shells and sharp mandibles that could cut through steel. Their eyes glowed with a dull yellow light, and they moved in quick, jerky motions. He reached out and touched the wall near the nest. The Kareth inside reacted immediately, slamming against the membrane, trying to get at him. The ship pulled him back with a gentle force, warning him to be careful. "I know," Danny said out loud. "They are dangerous. But I have dealt with pests before." He was not a scientist. He did not have advanced alien technology or special weapons. But he had something else. He had 20 years of experience fixing things that other people said could not be fixed. He had common sense and stubbornness and a willingness to work until the job was done. Danny pulled out his communicator and called Lisa back at the station. The signal was weak, but it got through. "Lisa, I found something," he said. "It is a living ship. It is alive and it is sick. There are parasites inside it and they are killing it." Lisa was silent for a moment. "A living ship? Danny, that sounds impossible." "I know what it sounds like, but I am standing inside it right now. It talks to me through my mind. It has been suffering for centuries and it needs help." "What kind of help?" "I need to kill the parasites. All of them. I need my full toolkit, and I need everything we have for pest control. Sonic emitters, chemical agents, traps, everything." Lisa hesitated. "Danny, this is way beyond what we are equipped for. Maybe we should call someone else. The military or one of the big corporations." "They will not help," Danny said. "Other species have found this ship before. They all abandoned it or tried to take advantage of it. I am the first one who offered to actually fix the problem." "And you think you can do it? By yourself?" Danny looked around at the living walls, felt the hope radiating from the ship's consciousness. "I have to try. Send me what I need. I will do the rest." Lisa sighed, but Danny knew she would help him. She was a good person, and she understood that some things were more important than following rules. "All right," she said finally. "I will send a cargo drone with supplies. It will take about 6 hours to reach you. Try not to get eaten before then. I will do my best." Danny ended the call and turned back to the wall where the Kareth nest pulsed with malevolent life. 6 hours. He could use that time to study the enemy, to learn their patterns and weaknesses. He was not going to rush into this. He was going to do it right. The ship sent him a feeling of gratitude mixed with worry. It was afraid for him. This small human who had come alone to face an enemy that had tormented it for 400 years. Danny smiled. "Do not worry," he said. "I have fixed worse things than this." It was not entirely true, but the ship did not need to know that. The cargo drone arrived 6 hours later, carrying everything Danny had asked for. He unloaded the supplies in the main chamber, spreading them across the floor like a surgeon preparing for an operation. Sonic emitters, chemical sprays, industrial traps, cutting tools, and enough protective gear to keep him safe from almost anything. It was not much compared to the size of the problem. But Danny had learned long ago that having the right tools mattered less than knowing how to use them. The ship watched him through their mental connection, curious and hopeful. It had never seen a human work before. It did not understand what Danny was planning to do. "First, I need to learn about them," Danny explained, speaking out loud even though the ship could read his thoughts. Talking helped him think. "Every pest has a weakness. Every creature has something it does not like. I need to find what the Kareth hate." He started with the sonic emitters. These were small devices that produced high-frequency sounds used on space stations to drive away vermin. Danny set one up near a small Kareth nest and activated it. The effect was immediate. The creatures inside the nest began to thrash and scream, slamming against the walls of their chamber. They could not stand the sound. Danny smiled. That was useful. He tested other things. Bright lights made the Kareth sluggish and confused. Extreme cold slowed them down almost to the point of stopping. And a certain chemical compound, normally used to clean engine parts, seemed to burn their shells like acid. The ship was amazed. In 400 years of suffering, no one had ever bothered to study the parasites. They had all assumed that nothing could be done, that the Kirith were too numerous and too embedded to remove. But Danny was not making assumptions. He was gathering information, piece by piece, building a plan. The work began on the outer sections of the ship. Danny chose the smallest nests first, the ones with only a few dozen Kirith inside. He sealed off the corridors around each nest, using the ship's own body to close passages and trap the creatures. Then he filled the sealed areas with sound and cold and poison. The Kirith died by the hundreds. Their bodies piled up in the corridors, black shells cracked and broken. Danny collected them and threw them out of the airlocks, cleaning the ship section by section. It was hard work. The Kirith did not die quietly. They fought back, trying to break through the sealed passages, trying to reach Danny and tear him apart. Their mandibles could cut through metal, and their claws were sharp enough to pierce his suit. More than once, Danny had to run for his life, sealing doors behind him as the creatures gave chase, but he was stubborn and the ship was helping him. Every time Danny was in danger, the ship would warn him through their connection. It would open escape routes and close barriers, guiding him to safety. The two of them worked together like old partners, even though they had only known each other for a few days. The days turned into weeks. Danny barely slept. He ate ration bars and drank recycled water, never leaving the ship for more than a few hours at a time. The deeper he went into the vessel, the larger the nests became, and the more dangerous the Kirith grew. In the third week, Danny reached the ship's secondary brain cluster. This was one of the most important parts of the vessel, controlling movement and navigation. A massive Kirith nest had formed around it, with thousands of creatures guarding their territory. Danny knew this would be the hardest fight yet. He spent 2 days preparing. He set up sonic emitters in a ring around the nest, placed traps at every exit, and filled containers with the chemical that burned Kirith shells. When everything was ready, he activated the emitters all at once. The sound drove the Kirith into a frenzy. They poured out of the nest by the thousands, running in all directions, trying to escape the noise. Many of them ran straight into Danny's traps. Others were caught in narrow passages where he had placed the chemical containers. The ship sealed doors and opened vents, flooding the area with freezing air. Danny stood in the middle of it all, wearing his heaviest protective suit, holding a modified cutting tool that he had turned into a weapon. When the Kirith came at him, he fought back. He was not a soldier, but he was strong from years of physical labor, and he was fighting for something that mattered. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, Danny could barely stand. His suit was torn in a dozen places and his body was covered in cuts and bruises. But the nest was empty. The secondary brain cluster was free. The ship sent him a wave of relief so powerful that Danny almost cried. For the first time in centuries, a part of its mind was clear of pain. It could think better now. It could feel better now, but the job was not done. There was still the Queen. She waited in the deepest part of the ship, attached to the primary brain cluster. She was the mother of all the Kirith on board, and she had been feeding on the ship's consciousness for 400 years. Danny had seen images of her in the ship's memories. She was huge, the size of a small building. Her body fused directly to the ship's neural tissue. Killing her with brute force would destroy the brain. She was attached to Danny needed a different approach. He spent another week clearing the remaining nests, working his way toward the center of the ship. With each nest he destroyed, the ship grew stronger. Its systems began to function better. Its lights grew brighter. Its walls healed faster. The vessel was coming back to life, piece by piece. Finally, Danny stood before the chamber of the Queen. He could feel her presence through the ship's connection, a cold and hungry intelligence that had lived for thousands of years. She knew he was coming. She was waiting for him. Danny checked his supplies. He was low on chemicals and his sonic emitters were nearly burned out. He had one chance to do this right. "I have an idea," he told the ship. "But I need your help. It might hurt." The ship understood. It was willing to endure any pain if it meant being free. Danny took a deep breath and stepped into the Queen's chamber. The Queen's chamber was the largest space Danny had seen inside the ship. The ceiling rose so high that he could barely see it, and the walls curved away in all directions like the inside of a massive egg. In the center of the chamber, attached to a mass of glowing neural tissue, sat the Kirith Queen. She was enormous. Her body stretched nearly 50 meters across, covered in thick black armor that looked harder than any metal Danny had ever worked with. Dozens of legs held her in place, each one as thick as a tree trunk. Her head was a nightmare of mandibles and eyes, glowing with that same yellow light as her children. And behind her, fused directly to her spine, was the ship's primary brain cluster. Danny felt the ship's fear through their connection. This was the source of all its suffering. This was the creature that had tormented it for 4 centuries. And now it was looking directly at Danny, its many eyes tracking his every movement. The Queen did not attack immediately. She was too smart for that. She had survived for thousands of years by being patient and careful. Instead, she watched Danny, trying to understand what this small human planned to do. Danny walked slowly around the edge of the chamber, studying the Queen's connection to the ship. He could see where her body had grown into the neural tissue, thick cables of flesh linking her nervous system to the ship's brain. She was not just feeding on the ship. She was controlling it, or at least trying to. The ship had been fighting her influence for centuries, and that fight had weakened both of them. "You cannot kill me," the Queen said suddenly. Her voice was not a sound in the air. It was a thought pushed directly into Danny's mind, cold and sharp like ice. "I am part of this vessel now. Destroy me, and you destroy the brain I am attached to. Your friend will die." Danny did not answer. He kept walking, examining the connections, looking for weaknesses. "Others have tried," the Queen continued. "Species far more advanced than yours. They brought weapons that could crack planets. They brought chemicals that could dissolve mountains. None of them could remove me without killing the host. You are just a simple creature with simple tools. You have no chance." Danny stopped walking. He had seen what he needed to see. "You are right about one thing," he said. "I cannot kill you. Not directly. Not without hurting the ship." The Queen made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then you admit defeat?" "No, I said I cannot kill you. I did not say I cannot remove you." Danny turned to face the Queen and sent a thought to the ship. Now, the ship understood immediately. It had been waiting for Danny's signal, preparing itself for what came next. Deep inside its body, the vessel began to change the flow of its internal fluids. The thick, nutrient-rich liquid that fed every part of the ship, including the Queen, began to redirect away from the brain cluster. The Queen felt it immediately. Her food supply was being cut off. She screamed in Danny's mind, a sound of pure rage, and her children began pouring into the chamber from hidden passages. Hundreds of Karath rushing to protect their mother, Danny ran for a sealed alcove in the wall, a safe spot the ship had prepared for him. The door slammed shut behind him just as the first Karath reached his position. He could hear them scratching at the barrier, trying to get through. "This will not work," the Queen shouted in his thoughts. "I can survive without food for years. You cannot wait that long." But Danny was not planning to wait. This was only the first part of his plan. Through the ship's eyes, he watched as the Queen began to weaken. Without the constant flow of nutrients, her body started to slow down. Her armor lost some of its shine. Her movements became less coordinated. She was still dangerous, still powerful, but she was no longer at full strength. Then, Danny sent the second signal. The ship began pumping a new fluid toward the brain cluster. It was not nutrients this time. It was the chemical compound that Danny had discovered weeks ago, the one that burned Kirath's shells. The ship was delivering it directly to the Queen, through the same connections she had used to feed. The Queen screamed again, this time in pain. The chemical was eating away at her connection to the ship's brain. The flesh cables that linked them together began to dissolve, melting like ice in hot water. She tried to hold on, tried to fight, but she could not stop the process. "You cannot do this," she howled. "I am eternal. I am beyond your understanding." "You are a pest," Danny said calmly. "And I am an exterminator." The Queen's connection broke. Her body, no longer fused to the ship, fell away from the brain cluster and crashed to the floor of the chamber. She was still alive, but she was disconnected. She was alone. Danny opened the door of his alcove and stepped out. The Kirith in the chamber had stopped moving. Without their queen's control, they were confused and disorganized. They scattered as Danny walked past them, afraid of this small human who had done what no one else could do. The queen lay on the floor, her massive body twitching weakly. She looked up at Danny with her many eyes, and for the first time, he saw something other than hunger in them. He saw fear. "Finish it," she said. "Kill me." Danny shook his head. "I am not going to kill you. I am going to let you leave." The queen did not understand. Neither did the ship. Danny explained. "You and your children can go. Find another host if you can. But you will never touch this ship again. If you come back, I will not be merciful a second time." The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she began to move. She dragged her weakened body toward one of the passages, and her children followed. They crawled out of the ship through the same airlocks they had used to enter centuries ago. Disappearing into the cold darkness of space, Danny watched them go. He could have killed them all. Part of him wanted to, but he was not a killer. He was a mechanic. His job was to fix things, not to destroy them. When the last Kirith was gone, Danny felt the ship's consciousness wrap around him like a warm embrace. The pain that had been there for so long was finally gone. The ship was free. "Thank you," it said in his mind. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Danny smiled. "You are welcome. Now let us see about getting you healthy again." The ship healed faster than Danny expected. Without the Kirith draining its energy, its body began to repair itself at an incredible speed. Damaged walls regrew overnight. Dead systems came back to life. Lights that had been dark for centuries blazed with new power. Danny walked through the corridors and watched the transformation with amazement. The ship called itself something that Danny could not pronounce, a name in a language older than humanity itself. So he gave it a simpler name. He called it Wren, after a small bird from Earth that was tough despite its size. The ship liked the name. It felt right. As Wren healed, Danny learned more about what it truly was. This was not just a living ship. This was a warship built by a civilization that had died out millions of years ago. Wren had weapons that could destroy entire fleets. It had engines that could bend space itself, traveling faster than anything humanity had ever created. It had defenses that could absorb attacks that would shatter moons for 400 years. All of this power had been locked away, suppressed by the Kirith infestation. Now it was waking up. Lisa came to visit in a shuttle, along with a small team from Anchor Point. They walked through Wren's corridors with wide eyes, unable to believe what they were seeing. A living ship. A creature older than their entire species. And it had chosen to trust a human mechanic from a backwater salvage station. "The Galactic Council is going to lose their minds," Lisa said. "A vessel like this has not been seen in recorded history. Every government, every corporation, every military will want it." "Wren is not a thing to be owned," Danny said firmly. "Wren is a being. A person. No one will take it anywhere against its will." Lisa nodded. She understood, even if she knew the politics would be complicated. Wren offered Danny a choice. The ship had spent millions of years alone, traveling from star to star without a true partner. It had been used by the Kirith, ignored by everyone else. But Danny had saved it. Danny had shown it kindness when no one else would. Wren wanted Danny to stay. "Bond with me," the ship said through their mental connection. "Become my partner. We will travel together, protect together, live together. I have never had a true companion. I want you to be the first." Danny thought about it for a long time. He had a life at Anchor Point. He had friends there, a routine, a place he belonged. But he also felt something when he was connected to Wren, a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. A feeling that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He said yes. The bonding was strange and wonderful. Wren opened its mind to Danny completely, and Danny did the same in return. They became linked in a way that was deeper than words. deeper than thought. Danny could feel everything the ship felt. He could see through its sensors, move through its body, control its systems with just a wish. And Ren could understand Danny's memories, his hopes, his fears, everything that made him who he was. They were not two beings anymore. They were partners joined together for as long as both of them lived. News of what happened spread quickly. Ships from dozens of species came to see the legendary living vessel that had returned from death. Some came with offers of alliance. Others came with threats. One particularly aggressive fleet demanded that humanity hand over both the ship and its pilot for study. Danny and Ren answered that demand with a demonstration. Ren powered up its weapons and fired a single shot at an empty asteroid belt. The asteroids vanished, turned to dust in an instant. The aggressive fleet turned around and left without another word. After that, the threats stopped. But the attention did not. 3 months after Danny's bonding with Ren, a new threat appeared. Kirith ships emerged from uncharted space more than anyone had ever seen before. 10,000 vessels filled with millions of the parasitic creatures. They had regrouped, multiplied, and now they were coming for revenge. The Galactic Council panicked. They had no fleet large enough to stop such a swarm. Military commanders talked about evacuating entire sectors. Politicians argued about who to blame. Everyone waited for the end. Danny and Ren had a different plan. They flew out to meet the swarm alone. One ship against 10,000. The galactic networks broadcast the confrontation live, and trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds watched to see what would happen. Danny felt no fear. Through his bond with Ren, he knew exactly what the ship could do. And Ren felt no hesitation. For the first time in its long existence, it was fighting alongside someone who truly cared about it. That made all the difference. The battle began. Ren moved through the swarm like lightning, faster than anything the Kirith had ever seen. Its weapons fired in all directions, each shot destroying multiple enemy vessels. The parasites tried to swarm it, tried to latch onto its hull and burrow inside. But Ren's defenses burned them away before they could get close. Danny guided the ship with his thoughts, anticipating enemy movements before they happened, finding weaknesses that no scanner could detect. Years of fixing machines had taught him how things worked, how they failed, where they were vulnerable. He applied that knowledge now, turning Ren into the perfect weapon. The swarm broke apart in hours. Ships fled in all directions, trying to escape the destruction. Danny and Ren let them go, just as they had let the Queen go before. The message was clear. Threaten humanity again, and there would be no mercy next time. When the battle ended, Danny sat in Ren's central chamber, exhausted but proud. Through their bond, he felt the ship's satisfaction. Its joy at being truly alive again after so many years of suffering. "We did good," Danny said out loud. "We did," Ren agreed. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries suddenly wanted to talk. Governments that had treated humans as insignificant now saw them differently. Not because of military power, not because of technology, but because of what Danny represented. A human had found a dying ship and chosen to help it. Not for reward, not for power, not for fame, just because it was the right thing to do. That simple kindness had created the most powerful alliance the galaxy had ever seen. Danny did not care about the politics. He did not care about the fame that now followed him everywhere. He was still just a mechanic at heart, a man who liked to fix things and make them work again, but now he had a partner who understood that about him. A partner who would travel with him across the stars, looking for others who needed help. Others who had been abandoned or ignored by a universe that did not care. Ren turned toward the unknown regions of space, ready for whatever came next. "Where should we go?" the ship asked. Danny smiled. "Somewhere we are needed." And together, the mechanic and the warship flew into the endless dark, ready to find the next broken thing that needed fixing.